So this is a video I never thought I would make in a million years. I'm pregnant, guys. There is an actual baby growing inside of me. And let me tell you, I never thought in a million years I would say that. If you are new here, welcome. If we haven't met before, my name is Seisha. This is the Still I Rejoice podcast where we talk about all things Jesus, Bible, motherhood, marriage, chronic illness, suffering, and typically we talk mostly about Jesus. But today I'm going to share my pregnancy story / my first trimester story. Honestly, the entire story has God's hand written all through it. And so I thought, why not have a story time of what God is doing in my life? Honestly, because I don't want to ever forget, but also if you are in this season of life where you think a baby is not an option for you, I want to give you hope that God is so much bigger than us, than our thoughts, and his thoughts are so far above our thoughts, and truly anything is possible when you surrender it to the Lord. Anyway, let's get right into it. So let me start by saying I have always wanted another baby. It's been something my heart has ached for years, but if you don't know my story, I had a horrendous pregnancy and a very traumatic birth experience with my daughter in 2021. And I immediately was like, I can never go through this again. And in the following months, I started to feel really sick, sick, years of doctor's visits that finally led to the diagnosis of my chronic illness. And as time went on, I started to feel so grieved because I wanted another baby more than I could put into words, but I never knew, I could never make the decision to try for a baby for multiple reasons. Number one, the agony I went through was very traumatizing. And number two, now we throw in my chronic illnesses and my inability to eat properly and my nutritional deficiencies and just overall feeling sick and lethargic all the time. Even the smallest amount of exertion or change would send my body spiraling and feeling like I couldn't function and I'd be so weak all the time. So for years, these thoughts have been just an ache in my heart because I wanted a baby more than I could put into words, but never felt like I could because of my health. And honestly, the baby's health was what I was most concerned about. So let's jump into this past September of 2025. I broke down. I sat by my bed and sobbed and said, Lord, I cannot carry the burden of not having another child any longer. I want a baby so bad, but I cannot in good conscience make this decision. So in that moment, I said, Lord, I'm giving it to you. I'm not going to worry about it for another second. I'm going to surrender. And if you want me to have a child, it will have to be by your divine intervention. And I truly felt that I left that burden and desire at the feet of Jesus after years and walked away burden-free from it. Now, about 3 weeks later, it was my birthday. Now, this is only significant because we had moved to be closer to my family in hopes that we could see, or I could see, new doctors and just have the support of my family around. And I was told at 6 months of truly trying to heal my body physically and emotionally that it could work wonders. So my birthday was at 6-month mark and I was convinced I would be healed or at least a lot better than I was. And not only was I not healed, but I had barely made any progress at that 6-month mark. And so again, I dropped to my knees on my birthday and wept like I've never wept before and said, Lord, if this illness is your desire for my life, then let your will be done. And I'm not going to fight it anymore. If your will is for me to only be able to eat the 6 foods I've been eating for the rest of my life, then you are going to find me here worshiping regardless. And what I didn't know at the time was that I was pregnant. And the following couple days, I quickly realized something was off in my body. And I was getting night sweats every night and insane panic attacks, waking up hyperventilating, which I'm a bit of an anxious person, but not panic attacks for no reason, panic attacks. And I knew it was something hormonal because I always get night sweats 2 days before I start my cycle every single month. So when I was getting them consistently, almost 2 weeks before my cycles is supposed to start, I was like, what in the world is going on? But still, not even considering pregnancy. I truly had just laid that to rest and was certainly not trying at this point. If you guys have followed my channel for a little while, you'll know back in September, I had uploaded a video. It was on September 29th. And it was all about giving your child to the Lord because I struggled with it so much when my daughter was a baby. And God had really put that on my heart to make a podcast episode about it. And it was kind of random because it's 4 years later. But so I had been working on it and thinking about it all week, how to surrender the life of your child. And I talked about Hannah in the Bible. But that morning before I recorded the video, my pastor's wife had sang the song Day by Day. And there's a verse that really stuck out to me while she was singing, and it said, "The protection of his child and treasure is a charge that on himself he laid. As the days, thy strength shall be in measure. This is the pledge to me he made." And I was like, Lord, thank you so much. That goes so well with what I'm talking about today in my video that I'm about to record. And literally the whole day just kept singing those lyrics. And I uploaded the video and set it to go live on YouTube at 8 a.m. The next morning, that Monday morning. So that Sunday night, I guess it was technically Monday morning at 2 a.m., I woke up and just felt so weird. I had the thought to take a pregnancy test and I was like, there's absolutely no stinking way that it's positive. My cycle is not due for another week, but something in my gut just prompted me to do it. And I had to get up and use the bathroom anyway. So I was like, you know what? Why not? I'm just going to take this test. Not going to be positive. It never is, but I took the test and literally just lied down and forgot about it. And I can't remember if I just drifted off to sleep or I was scrolling on my phone, but all of a sudden I was like, oh, you took a test. And that's how much I didn't think anything of it. And I grab it and it's dark in my room. Obviously it's middle of the night, but I was like, oh, it's negative, and put it down and was like, I'm glad I got that off my mind. And then I was like, why do I feel the nudge to check that again? I just looked at it and I was like, well, maybe I should turn on my flashlight just to be sure on my phone, just in case it would be extremely faint because it is so early. So I shine a light on it and sure enough, there's this line so faint, I thought I was seeing things. If you saw it, you'd probably think I was seeing things. So I sprinted to the bathroom and took some of the bulk cheap tests I had bought. And sure enough, the faintest of lines. It had showed, seriously, if I would have showed it to you, you'd have been like, go back to bed. You are seeing things. And I'm like, there is absolutely no way. Those are just indentation lines. You're losing it. And I went back to sleep. So I wake back up at 6:30 and I couldn't shake it. And my daughter was still sleeping and my husband was home. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to slip out of the house and just run to the grocery store down the street before everybody's up and back to work. And so I got one of the tests that says pregnant or not pregnant. So I could just set my mind at ease that it was just indentation lines. And I was so anxious. I literally went into the grocery store bathroom, took the test, threw it in my bag and walked to my car. I got to the stoplight right outside the grocery store and it linked pregnant. And the fear and shock that overtook my body, I felt like I was spinning and I was just absolutely beside myself. And I just paused while I was at the stoplight and I looked over at the time and sure enough, it is 8:02, 2 minutes after the video about giving your child's life to the Lord went live on my podcast. When I noticed the time, I took a deep breath and said, Lord, This video was for me. You knew I would find out today that I was pregnant, and you had me make a video to remind me that this child is not my own. And the song lyrics immediately came back to the protection of his child and treasure is a charge that on himself he laid. And as the days, the strength shall be in measure, because this is the pledge to me you made. And it hit so hard, and I went home and I walked into my husband's office shaking and sobbing, and all I could say was, I don't feel well. And he was like, oh no, what's wrong? And having a chronic illness, he's always kind of worried. And I said, I'm pregnant. And he was like, what did you just say? And I was like, I'm pregnant. And he just went as white as a ghost, blank face, stared at me. And he just got up and wrapped his arms around me, and he said, you know 100%? And I was like, yeah, I do. And he was like, you're going to be just fine. This is a great thing. It's a blessing from the Lord. He went on to say that the day before he had been thinking and praying about the fact that he really wanted a son. So my head is still spinning, but everything led up to that moment was giving me peace that God was completely in control, especially just the fact that this was something my husband wanted and had been praying for. And it was never something that he told me about or had a conversation about, because he knew how I felt about getting pregnant. He knew that I had a chronic illness, and he never wanted to put that pressure on me. And so he just left it at that. Like, our family is perfect. Don't worry about it. Don't think about it. And so the fact that he had been praying for a son without telling me, and then I ran up to him and was like, I'm pregnant. It really reminded me that it was the Lord's doing. It was that divine intervention that I had prayed about. But then about 2 weeks later, I started bleeding, and it was right before my daughter's soccer game. Of course, it's never an opportune time, but she was having pictures done that day, and there was no way I was going to miss it. I had lost a decent amount of blood and was for sure, I knew I was miscarrying. And I cried and pulled myself together and went to the game. But while I was there, I started having intense chest pain and feeling like I was going to pass out. And I didn't want to interrupt for fun. And so I called my parents to come take me to the ER, because that's what moms do, so their children don't miss their soccer games, So I got there to the ER. They did a bunch of tests. They did an ultrasound, but the baby was just too small. They said they had no idea, but it doesn't appear to be in a fallopian tube, so it could be normal or you could be miscarrying, but there's nothing that they can do, that they can see. It's not dangerous at the moment. But they did take my HCG levels, and they were at 275, which was okay for how long or how many weeks I was along. Then they did another HCG test a few days later, and the number had almost tripled. So that was a really good sign, but I had continued to bleed on and off for the following week. So they said they can only confirm the baby is alive when you are 7 weeks with an ultrasound. So praise the Lord, I went to go get the ultrasound, and baby was completely fine. I was in disbelief. I thought for sure he wasn't going to be. He had a heart rate of 145, and it felt like I was in shock all over again. But at that point, it was like a whirlwind. I was just trying to keep up with what was happening. So right after that, I took one of those early at home blood tests, because I was dying to know if I was having a boy or a girl. And a few weeks later, we found out we were having a boy, just like my husband had prayed about. So exactly what my husband wanted. And I don't know, it's just a huge blessing and just another sign that the Lord had been in it. And it's just such a blessing to have a front row seat to God working in my life. And has it been easy? Absolutely not. But every day through my first trimester, I would sing that song and remind myself that my strength would come in measure day by day. And I'm so limited on food because I have all of these allergic reactions, but the food aversion was so real and forcing myself to eat what I could barely stand to look at was extremely hard. And I immediately stopped my medication and feared that it would hurt the baby for my Mcas, and started forcing down multivitamins and folate and all these things so this baby had a fighting chance. And God has been so gracious. I have not had a reaction to any of the things I've tried, and I'm currently seeing a high-risk OBGYN that has set me up with an entire team with cardiologists and Mcas doctor, just so many different people that I really needed to see and have my health up to date. And if you guys don't know, we just moved not too long ago, and so we're like a completely different state. I had no doctors. I had just gotten an OBGYN literally 2 weeks before I found out I was pregnant. It was just crazy timing. But anywhere from my heart problems to a nutritionist, and like I said, an allergist, we've had several ultrasounds at this point, and baby boy looks great. We had the anatomy scan, which honestly I was absolutely terrified of, because I thought that with the fact that I was so deficient in folate, that leads to spina bifida and cleft palate and those other things. And I was convinced this baby was going to have so many problems. And we had the anatomy scan, and they were like, he looks perfect to us. And it just, God has been through all of this with us so closely, and I just feel his presence and this constant reminder of this child is not yours, and it's not up to you whether he's healthy or he's not, because I can make him whatever way I want to make him. And it's just been so reassuring that not all the weight falls on me. Obviously, I'm trying to do and steward the best I can, but that ultimately he has full say and full power over the health of myself as well as this child. But of course, there's still a lot of unknowns, and it's keeping it all a matter of prayer and trust. And I'm just trying to get food down that will help me and will help him. I would, of course, appreciate your prayers as I navigate all of this. But one thing I do know completely certain of is that this child's life, whether he's perfectly healthy or not, whether he makes it full term or not, that it's not up to me. And I'm not going to lie. It's at the beginning, I really struggled. I was like, God, I gave this to you in full trust that you would heal my body beforehand, that I would be fully prepared if this day did ever come. And we both know that I can't physically do this right now. I'm shocked my body even allowed for pregnancy with the state I was in, especially with the stress and the health problems. But it's truly been a daily surrender. And it was hard for us the first time around to get pregnant. And often when your body is so sick and so stressed, you can't get pregnant. It's really hard to have a baby, but God had other plans, and I know he already has an amazing purpose and a plan for my son's life. And I'm just praying that this will be a redeemed pregnancy and childbirth experience. This is something I've prayed for since the beginning, but I haven't told anyone, and I can't tell you how many people, when I've told them my story, have said, I think God will redeem this pregnancy for you. And it makes me cry every single time, because those are the exact words that I've prayed. And I've just been so reassured from the Lord that this time around will be different. Whatever that means, whatever that looks like, I'm surrendering that outcome to him. And I'm talking about like saved and unsaved people. Random doctors have just randomly said to me, this is going to be different for you. I can just tell. And I can tell you already that my nausea in the first trimester was half of what it was with my daughter. I was scared to death that all of my safe foods were going to make me so violently ill. And although I didn't always want to eat them, and that was really hard, and I had to force them down, sometimes through tears, they never made me vomit or feel horrendous. So I've been resting a lot, praying a lot. I know that children are a blessing from the Lord, and I truly believe this baby was an answer to prayer that I thought would truly never happen. So I'm so thankful, and I'm so grateful and excited. I'm scared, but God has also brought such a peace knowing that he did this, and it has God written all over it, and without a doubt he's responsible for this baby, and that's taken just a lot of the questions and the fears away. I am currently 24, almost 25 weeks pregnant. So we still have about 15 weeks to go, which is still, it's like a long way to go, but also it's like creeping up. I'm like, that's just a little over 3 months. And I don't know, I'm scared. I'm a little scared. I'm not going to lie. I have a follow-up next week to see how he's doing, but I just want to give you hope. If you're dealing with chronic illness or infertility, I hope you feel encouraged. We serve a God so much bigger than us that can walk us through things we don't think were ever possible. And I was just listening to my pastor this morning because it's Sunday afternoon, and he was talking about Paul, when Paul prays to the Lord and asks him to remove the thorn in the flesh. And the Lord says, "My grace is sufficient for thee." And I've thought about that a lot, just because I had truly prayed that God would take my chronic illness away before he gave me a baby, and he hasn't. And so that just reminder that even when God doesn't take the things that we have in our life, or this pain or suffering or chronic illness, that he's going to walk with us through everything, and his grace will be enough. It'll be enough. And like I said, that song too, day by day, knowing that my strength every day is going to be in measure. So I don't need to worry about the future. I know that God's grace is sufficient for me today. He's going to give me the strength for today. So there's no need in worrying. And I really hope that brings you encouragement if you're dealing with a chronic illness, or for some reason, whatever it may be, you feel like you can't get pregnant or have a baby, that the Lord is good and the Lord knows. And he said in 1 Samuel, he remembered Hannah. And that's my prayer for you, is that no matter what, whether God gives you a baby or not, that he remembers you. And I hope you feel encouraged by that. I hope it gives you hope. If you guys have any questions specifically to my chronic illness and how that's been going exactly with the baby, or you have specific questions, please leave them down below. I'm happy to share anything. I'm an open book. I really feel like God has me here to help women who are in the same situation as I am. So any questions, nothing's weird, nothing's too out there, let me know and I will do the best I can to answer them. But my next video will be back to a little bit more on topic things. I am going to talk about my childbirth experience and how I am dealing with trusting the Lord in my childbirth, when having dealt with a traumatic childbirth where, if you don't know my story, it really derailed my faith for a long time. So I'm going to be talking about that, and how to trust the Lord again with something that you felt like he failed you the first time with. So if that's something you're interested, please subscribe. You can follow me here on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, all under Still I Rejoice. So I'd love to see you guys around there. I love you guys. Thanks for watching. I hope you have the best rest of your day, and I will see you in my next episode. Bye.